So, hello, everybody. Hello to the viewers and the listeners of the Naked and Unashamed live podcast with me, Lucy Rowett. This is another wonderful episode, and every time I start an episode, I say, I'm really excited because I always am. And today I am talking with a former client of mine, Shae Court, who has very, very generously and wonderfully agreed to talk about her experience of us working together. And it is really lovely because I love interviewing former clients and getting their experiences because I can talk about that this work is really good and it's really powerful, but often we can get more, I don't know, when we see ourselves in other people's stories, it's really, really powerful. So I'm really grateful that you're here, Shae. Can you tell everyone, say who you are, where you are, a bit about you, anything that will be relevant here?
Hey, Lucy, thank you so much for having me today. It's such a beautiful opportunity.
Hmm.
So, I'm Shae and I'm 36. I live in Brisbane in Queensland, Australia, and I am a divorced girly, a single mum,
Mm.
and I'm really at the moment pursuing my interest in personal growth.
Mm.
And I'm showing up on social media and turning the personal growth into reels.
That's always the thing when we start this, what's it, visibility journey thing on social media and or generally the online space. That's a whole personal development course in itself, by the way, which you probably have realized already.
Sure is. Nothing like action, right? To grow and learn. On the
Nothing
job, right? On the job experience.
on the job experience. And like, I mean, it's like going off on a tangent here, but it's whenever it's being visible online, it will always bring up stuff. And in some ways you can feel quite naked and vulnerable. This is from my own experience as well, and many other people's experience. And can you kind of tell me what was your background in exploring your own sexuality, and maybe what made you want to start doing this work in the first place?
Yeah, great. I love that question. My background, let me set the scene for you.
Mm.
I was raised in a very Christian, conservative household. I was homeschooled
Oh, wow.
right the way through. Everything was designed and in aid of this religiosity, right? Of being separate from the world. And that part of that programming around sex was basically that sex is dirty.
Hmm.
And though in the confines of the marriage institution, it was all fair game, really. But it was kind of very confusing and there wasn't very much education.
Hmm.
And for me, my experience was dating is bad, lust is bad, sexual desires is bad. If you even think about touching yourself, like masturbation,
Yeah.
you will surely face blindness, backache, and indeed, you won't be able to go to heaven.
Mm.
So the shame was deeply woven in
Mm.
to my being.
Mm. Yeah. And I think when I talk about this a lot, when you come from any kind of religious background, and for you, it was even more intense because you were homeschooled, it was even more conservative than what I had. I'm quite clear that I did not come from a cult-like environment, but it's if you're not from that environment, a lot of people don't quite understand how deep it goes. And it really embeds itself very deep. And it becomes the filter through which you see the world and through which you interpret the world. Yep. She's nodding, rolling her eyes.
100%.
Yeah. And it's
Yes.
like, and it's also the way in which you relate to yourself. And you don't realize it's a thing until you start to come out of it, because it's just part of who you are. And how, it's kind of like talking to fish about water. It's like, what's water? I don't know. That's similar experience.
It's
And
normal.
it's normal. It's
Yeah.
And especially in a lot of Christian teachings, it's very much like, do not be of the world. We can be, did you get that thing of, you can be in the world but you can't be of the world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was,
Fully embedded.
yeah. And so, like, what was some of your, and I'm just thinking, what made you want to start exploring your sexuality, or where was some of the, where did you start to begin with that?
Yeah, of course. That's awesome. The the catalyst for me was when my boy's dad and I separated and we went our separate ways, and I began to explore the dating apps, thinking, well, this will be a solution. Maybe marrying the one person that I had experienced sexual interaction with, maybe the antidote to that is to go and meet other people.
Mm.
And what I found was, it was very discouraging and it was very depressive, because I was still there. Like, the me was still there in that interaction. And when I say the me, it was the one who was stuck in her head, riddled with shame about sex, and totally disconnected
Yeah.
from my body. Like, I didn't feel anything.
Mm.
And there was a time where I thought, oh, just need to meet the right person,
Mm.
and the angels will appear from the sky and start singing. and and I did engage with a few different persons thinking that was going to be the solution, and it wasn't.
Mm.
And at the I got to the point where I was very down. I probably was almost about to give up on myself. And that was the point where, scrolling on social media, I came across the work that you do.
Oh. And then, but I know that you also, I think you did some sex therapy as well. I think you might have done some other things too, from what I remember. Um,
Yes, during the relationship with
yeah.
my boy's dad, that was a 10-year relationship, my first relationship,
Mm.
first sexual partner. There were a couple of things that I did engage in,
Mm.
thinking this would be the solution.
Yeah.
And they were only ever short-term scenarios, like a day thing or a 1 hour thing.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, to listeners, Shay's given me permission to share this. I'm not diving into the confidentiality without asking her first, just for clarification. Um, and also, there's something that is coming up as you're sharing this, because when it comes to not just religious conditioning around sex and all the shit that comes with that, there's also a lot of conditioning around not being allowed to ask for what you want, not being allowed, not even being allowed to have wants in the first place.
Oh,
Yeah. I remember that was a big part of our work, and it was kind of learning how to trust that feeling, that felt sense of, you know what, this person isn't for me. This person is giving me the creeps. My spidey senses are all off. And yeah, what was that? What was your experience of that, first of all?
thank you for raising that. And from my understanding, this may come up again
Mm-hmm.
throughout this interview. So I'm happy to expand on it. However, yeah, headline, absolutely. When I was journaling into preparation for our call today, that was what came up for me, was how I learnt to say no.
Mm.
And I also learnt yes in that process. And the ask, that is the peak learning from our time together that I began to embody. Because yes, asking for what you want was like, oh, Shae, that's silly. You want to be like held a little longer. You want to be touched a certain way. Like, who are you to want that?
Yeah.
That's silly. They're silly things, and they are worth being embarrassed for. That was the old programming.
Yeah. And it's also because like I'm bringing this up also because I was talking to somebody else who's from this world, and she was reminding me that because it's so embedded that it's not just I can't ask for what I want. It's often, well, I don't have wants in the first place. I'm not supposed to have wants. Just smile, smile, be nice, put up and shut up. And you don't quite realize again how deep that goes, because when you've never been allowed to not just say no, but feel your no in the first place. And this is from a lot of not just cult survivors, but it can be from trying to find wording for this. It's every woman and somebody socialized as female, we experience this on different levels where our boundaries are never really honored, where our no is never honored, and it can go from like microaggressions to the big awful stuff. And I've had to learn this, and it's not a linear process. It's not a one and you're done. It's and this is what I remember from my work. A big part was not just like, okay, let's just unlock something and you're having loads of orgasms and like going absolutely wild. It was actually, let's trust that no first.
Absolutely. And another part of our time together was tuning into that discernment, and that I was allowed to have discernment. I love your point about boundaries, because almost in the old programming, it's who are you to have boundaries. It also feeds into that, who are you to have wants and needs, right?
Sinful,
And
terrible.
oh, who are you to take up space and have a voice, right? You're there to look nice, be helpful. And that was one thing that I really recognized from our time together, was going into these sexual interactions. I was like, right, the picture is disconnected from my body, not knowing what I want, and feeling embarrassed and ashamed of that, and then going into interactions with people, and they would say, well, how do you like to be touched? What works for you? And then not really knowing, but then maybe feeling a little brave depending on the circumstances and saying, well, maybe try this or that. But if it took too long, right? If like I wasn't squirting or like, what, yeah, right. Within like
Gymnastics.
3 seconds, within 3 seconds, I would be embarrassed about even more things, right? And then would quickly switch it to, let's focus on you. And I suppose I became very good at pleasing them, because that's all I knew.
And it's again that thing of conditioning where you learn that first of all in your upbringing, which is please everybody else, don't cause a fuss, be sweet, pray and obey.
Right, yes.
Think of that Netflix documentary. But anyway,
yucky.
And this translated into sex and intimacy. And for something I remember was that I felt that you were feeling this pressure. Okay, if I just unlock something, I'm just going to be this wild sex rabbit, whatever. And and I remember us saying that can happen, but I think it's more you don't have to have that. I'm wondering where your no is.
Mm.
And like, I know this attitude can also exist in the kind of sex positive world as well, where you can feel, I know I felt this pressure to like, okay, I'm sex positive, I should be up for everything.
Right.
Yeah. And part of that is actually, you know what? No. And that's actually part of the medicine, is it being able to say, no, I don't like that. I'm not into that.
Mm. That raises something really awesome that I just thought of. Part of my antidote to healing from the programming, right, of my upbringing. I remember someone saying to me, their sage advice to me was, well, you've come from here, conservative, purity, one sexual partner. The antidote is to swing the other way, right? And then find your balance in the middle.
Yeah.
And part of me took that advice at the time, and I visited some swingers parties,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that was a really helpful lesson, because generally speaking, for those parties, I remained clothed and an observer.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult the first time or two, because I felt like, what's wrong with you, Shae? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you should be in there,
Mm.
all about it,
In, hands on, hands in.
and thinking they don't find me attractive. I must not be attractive. It was noticing all the stories that came up, right? And it was holding myself through it. So there was a lot of helpful strategies I learned from our time.
Yeah.
And one particular party I remember I went, I noticed the spiral getting ready to go down.
Yeah.
And I took myself into the bathroom, and I locked the door, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like,
Mm.
Shae, this is nothing to do about your worth. You are welcome to be here. You get to choose. Yeah, it was awesome, and a sign of growth for me.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that when in that session. And I think also this is when I've had conversations with other people, it's like, you can go to BDSM parties or swingers parties and not actually take part. You can just
Mm,
watch. And
mm,
a lot of people are like, what? Yeah, you could just watch. Or you can like hang out
yeah.
at the bar, you can eat snacks, you can talk to people. And I love that when the what's it that time that you went, you actually did hold your boundaries, in that it was actually a very healthy thing that you did, in
Mm,
not 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 that if you hadn't taken part that wouldn't also have been good, but there was
mm,
that wisdom there that said, you know what, I'm not quite ready for this doesn't feel right for me yet. And that is so fucking important. That is more, I don't know, just as or more important than saying, you know what, I'm just gonna dive in. And there would have been nothing wrong if you had diving, whatever the past participle of dive is. But like, especially for you, this is often where a lot of things can go wrong in like neo tantra or conscious sexuality or swinging, when you don't
mm,
quite know your boundaries yet. And so a lot of people, and this has happened to me as well, you just kind of dive in, and then you're in
mm,
way over your head. You end
yeah,
up doing things that do not feel good. And then afterwards, you feel just, oh, gross and violated. Not
mm,
necessarily because anybody did anything wrong, but because you didn't have a sense of where are my boundaries here. So it's really awesome that you did stand apart, because it was I guess from a nervous system perspective, you were like building up your tolerance level, which is really
yes.
important.
That old window of tolerance and
I wonder.
capacity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You are spot on with your share there, because I knew that on those occasions I could have dived in easy.
yeah,
I can unzip my dress easy. I could allow someone else to, but I knew inside of me that if I did, that would have been a betrayal
yeah.
to myself, and we're not about the self betraying anymore.
Hashtag, we're not about the self.
Right?
Yeah, you were really taking care of yourself and taking care of your precious, wonderful body and sexual energy to then feel into, where is my yes?
Mm.
Oh, and like this kind of leads into
Mm.
what, when we first started working together, what was like your initial hopes and expectations? Because there's a lot we can go into there.
Yeah, of course. When I was filling out the preparation paperwork, I remember thinking, I'm going to sign up to this because I want those juicy multiple orgasms, that lushness that I read about on the internet.
Yeah.
and and little did I know that there was quite a bit of work to, quite a few steps to step in the middle.
Yeah.
And
I like that analogy.
that's probably where I was at.
Yeah. Because, and I really like that analogy because this is a really common thing I get when people approach me like, Lucy, I just want
Mm.
to get to this place of like legs in
Yep.
the air, humming, splooging everywhere, and this wildly liberated. And I'm like, that's great, we can have that, but we need to, there's a lot of in-between steps first.
Mm.
Otherwise what can happen is, maybe you could be completely liberated and splooging everywhere. I love the
Yeah,
word splooge, but
I love it too. It's juicy.
but often when there's no, when there isn't a lot of sense of boundaries in terms of, does this feel good? Because this is um something that I really try and emphasize, because this is what can go wrong again in a lot of neo tantra, where maybe you do unlock something and you're coming everywhere and you're just doing all this wild stuff, but because there's not a sense of where this feels good, people end up getting re-traumatized or end up going way over their tolerance and getting quite damaged. And that was something I didn't want for you and for anybody. It's like, we want to make sure that we've got a sense, especially with your background and with so many people's backgrounds, when we don't have a sense of where my no is and where my boundaries are in the first place, it can mean that you can be so wide open, just gesticulating wildly, that all sorts of
Yeah.
icky things can happen, and that can take ages to repair that. I didn't want that for you.
And and I appreciate that because I realized from sending you the initial paperwork and then our first session or two, I was brought I was brought to a place of, I want to say realistic, although that sounds limiting,
Yeah.
but I'm referring to that session where we developed the North Star, the
Mm.
blueprint.
Yeah.
And I remember part of my homework was to put that together, and
Hmm.
my desires, I suppose, went from lush, gushing every 2 seconds. It was scaled to something that was totally achievable and doable from where I was at.
Hmm.
And it was something about creating a lush garden, right? And working with safe, experienced people who understood
Hmm.
where I was coming from, right?
Hmm.
And who could scaffold me to that next point
Hmm.
and could help me to, using the garden analogy,
I love
pull
that.
the weed, pull the
Yeah.
weeds
Pull the weight.
of old programming that were no longer relevant or helpful,
Mm.
and replanting color and peonies and sunflowers and
Peonies.
greenery. and
The peonies.
and
I
then
remember the peonies.
I went a step further, and this garden is next to a lush river, right?
Oh yeah. I love the visual. And you're such a visual person. I loved that analogy. The peonies. I remember the peonies and
Yes,
the
the peonies.
yeah. And it was I was gonna come out with something really brilliant and it's now gone, but it will probably come back. But it, you know, it was something along the lines. It will come back. My brain's gone, but that was again, like, you know, the word realistic, it does sound a bit like, be realistic, you know, you can't have that. But more in terms of like, well, where are you now?
Mm,
And you know, it's more about enhancing what is here now and what is beautiful and holy, if that, for want of a word, what is whole now, and let's amplify that rather than
yes,
trying to be this person that maybe might not be authentic to you. And it's not
yes,
that in a few years' time you're not gushing all over the place, and
right,
that can happen. That's amazing.
100%.
Yeah. And what was different about working with me as opposed to some other stuff you've done before? Whoops, before. I've already slightly
Yeah,
knocked over the microphone here.
sure.
Yeah.
What was different? The key difference of working with you as opposed to the other dabblings that I had done in attempts to grow and tune to my sexuality. In the past, it had been really short, discontinuous
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
engagement with people who could possibly have helped me. So it was maybe a day event, or it was a 1 hour, a couple 1 hour sessions, you know, a week or two apart. So the difference with working with you, Lucy, was the true container nature. We had 6 months together, right?
Bit longer than that,
And
actually.
a little over 6 months,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the power of, there's a few things, right? You had the faith background in common, right? So you got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And you normalized everything that I was feeling, and where I was at, you normalized it. And I remember after the first couple of sessions that we had together, writing in my journal about how incredible I felt already.
Mm. Yeah.
The power of having someone normalize what you're feeling. I remember writing it was like being seen.
Mm.
It's was unrivaled. And having you in my corner, really, having someone like you in my corner for that extended period
Mm.
was, it made all the difference, as
Yeah.
opposed to going and seeing somebody for an hour once a week. We
Yeah.
had a little bit of contact in between sessions.
Yeah.
It was truly a relationship,
Yeah. It
and there was
was.
healing in that relationship. Yes.
As humans, we are hurt and harmed through relationship, and we heal through relationship.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I can't remember who originally quoted it, but you know, I'm quoting it again. But it is true. It's a human thing. We get hurt and harmed through relationships, and that's why a relationship, whether it's a professional one, a professional helping one, or just like people around you, we heal through relationships too. And it was I remember in our work, like, you know, I talked a lot about nervous system theory and somatic theory because, by the way, I'm shuffling here. It, you know,
Get
another,
comfy.
I know, well, you know, this is how I regulate. I'm very much a fidgeter. Um, when you come from not just a faith background, but I'd say any body background, there's a lot of no contact with your body, and the
Mm,
body is through which we, you know, on a basic level, sex, we tend to have sex with our bodies, but
yes.
also it's the, in the Christianity that you came from, that I came from, plus the general wider world, the body is seen as something just like, ugh, you know, just
Yeah.
transcend the body, ascend out of the body, you know. And you know, this exists in other spiritual modalities where just ascend, you know, let's go upwards and outwards. And I really hope that in our work together, it was like, no, your body is it is the vehicle through which we can experience divinity. It is.
Ooh.
Your body is the portal, literally, physically, metaphorically, and I hope that you're still able to take some of that.
I remember the Bible verse, cover the shame of your nakedness.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Oh, that was
Ooh.
very at the front of my mind. And so I remember finding it very challenging when there was some homework from you that
Yeah.
required nakedness
Yeah.
and maybe even a mirror. It
Yeah.
was lots would come up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember that Bible verse, but it sounds familiar. Oh God. And it's like naked, not just within Christianity, a lot of cultures as well tends to over sexualize a naked body and make it something dangerous. Like,
Oof.
and I can often tell by the way that some Christian women hold themselves, through the way they hold that their body is almost like a place where we have to cover up. Like, this is okay, danger zone here. And your body, all of our bodies is something. I say the word sacred, and I know that that word can be loaded for some people. So I mean, like, our bodies are something amazing and beautiful, and I like to reclaim. Whoopsie, I like to reclaim the word sacred from the Christian and religious context. Um, what was? Hang on, because I have a list of questions here, just so that we
Of
cover all
course.
bases. Um, what other kind of breakthroughs or realizations did you have? Because you shared a lot already. What other breakthroughs or big ones you can remember?
I will answer that question. And just to circle back to the last point that we're making about the body being a bit of a nuisance to have along, life's journey.
Oh,
One of the key things was, and this is pertinent to the conversation today, is the the vagina, right? The genital region is in fact dirty
oh,
and
yeah.
smelly
Oh.
and cover up. Cross your legs. I hope you're wearing undies. Be a lady.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember in one of our sessions, and this was really healing. This was another really healing micro interaction for me, was when you were describing the body and you were saying that gorgeous, yummy space,
Mm.
something to that effect. And I remember there was a part of me that was shocked in the call, and I
Oh.
was a bit in awe as well. I was thinking, well, now maybe it is a yummy, gorgeous space. Maybe this perspective that it's dirty can be in the past now. So that was really
Mm.
cool. That was a really cool moment. One of the many cool moments, right?
I'm clapping here, by the way.
Yeah,
Yay.
I love it. I love it. So breakthroughs of my time with you, you're right. We have mentioned, touched on some of them, and I think one of the ones that I haven't mentioned was hope.
Mm.
Working with you, you gave me hope.
Mm.
And that was superbly powerful because my headspace and the experiences that seem to be the evidence for the headspace before I signed up with you, it was doom and gloom. It
Mm.
was dark. It was very much a future of give up, give up,
Oh.
power down, that's it.
Mm.
And I remember I spent a period very down about that. Working with you, it gave me hope.
Mm.
It taught me that I can have a voice.
Mm.
And that does kind of reiterate what we've touched on. I can have a voice and I can ask for things, and
Mm.
they're not silly.
Yeah.
Remember we did that exercise, and it was online, and if you remember the name of it, please jump in. And it was creating a visual of your desired or ideal sexual encounter. And so you had all these colored blocks and you
Oh,
could drop them in.
oh, what was it called? The Graphic Sex
And
Project.
yeah, the graphic sex project. That
Yeah.
was amazing for me, because one thing that I can report to you, when I went through that exercise and I was putting in have a little snacks and cups of tea and blankets and cushions and lots of hugs and lots of
Yeah.
non-sexual touching, and I remember when I was putting that together, I was thinking, this is a little bit unrealistic. Like, who could I ever meet that would be interested in that, and would I ever have the courage to ask, right?
Mm.
And since our time together, when I reflect on my experiences post, there's been so many elements of that graphic sex project that I've experienced in real time for myself.
Mm.
And to circle back, the breakthroughs were, you gave me hope and you normalized what I was feeling.
Mm.
I learnt to say no.
Mm.
I learnt to ask.
Mm. Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Mm. And that
So beautiful.
it was, and it still is. It's ongoing, and you know, it's that thing of like, yes, orgasms are wonderful. We can learn how to and everything. And often what is deeper than that is learning how to ask, learning how to say no. Um, everything else that you just said that my brain has now done a brain fart on. And that can often be more at the root of then having those orgasms and like coming in different positions and moving your body and playing with different people doing different things, and often that's more at the root of it, because then you can have these yummy experiences with people when there's more of that foundation there. So yeah, I remember that.
It just reminds me that I remember reading things on the internet, and people were saying an orgasm is like the icing on the cake.
Mm.
It's not the be all and end all.
Yeah.
It's like this whole process and practice in the lead up can be just as good, if not even surpass,
Yeah.
right? In some contexts.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time that was very encouraging for me,
Mm.
because I thought, okay, this holy grail of orgasm that I have felt like I must experience before I die,
Yeah.
it just really kind of leveled it out a lot more.
Mm. Yeah. I like that. And it's taking it off the pedestal. I don't know.
Right.
I get this image of like something up in the heavens in the clouds of like the holy orgasm far off into the distance. The clouds, you know, it's shining and actually like and
Angels.
angels singing.
Harping with their harps, singing.
Touch God. And what was it? And the thing is, in psychology, and the thing is, it's true. Like the paradox of orgasm is the less you try and come, the more likely you are to come. It's that, and it's also the more we can savor everything else, that makes orgasms more likely to happen. And like, you know, I know you've had orgasms since then, and there are so many different kinds of orgasms, not just in terms of like, you know, clitoral, G-spot, anal. It's like you've probably had that experience. They have different emotional qualities, or they last longer or shorter, or you feel different afterwards. Has that been your experience? Just adding that question in.
Right.
Yeah.
I can confirm parts of those,
Mm.
yes. And it depends there's so many variables, right? So your headspace at the time, who it is that you're interacting with, what you've been doing beforehand in a
Yeah.
non-sex way.
Yeah.
Lucy, there's one thing that just came up for me when we were talking just in the last 30 seconds. I remember as a child growing up, the one thing that I wanted before I died was to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about sex being on a pedestal and it being so like up and away,
Yeah.
that's how it was positioned for me. Like growing up, it's like it's bad, it's dirty, it's wrong, and you've got to save it for marriage. And so the thinking was, okay, let's get married really quick then, so that we can experience this
Yeah.
before I die. And indeed, the driving messaging was the world is ending.
Oh.
It was sex is out here, and you're not allowed to have it, and the world
Oh.
is ending. So of course,
Pressure much.
oh, Lucy, and there's no sex in heaven, right? So it was an almost an impossible situation. And so then, of course, it became front of my mind. I would pray. I remember praying, like,
Wow.
please, God, can I somehow experience sex before I die? Can you please not come back until I have experienced that?
I love that. And I love that. And that's really, and it's really sad as well. It's that Jesus, it's great that you're coming back, but can you just hold off?
Pause.
But it's also like, you know, there's no sex in heaven. And like, I don't know, it just speaks to me of this whole, again, this splitting that sex is somehow wrong and dirty, but and shame on you for wanting to have it.
Yeah.
And and like you know, it's like actually sex, you know, this is what I love about some aspects of sacred sexuality is like sex can be the vehicle through which we experience the divine and we experience our divinity. And
Wow.
God, I just think no sex in heaven. I think that's a really sad place to be. That's not heaven for me. Don't think I want to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, so I have another question, and you know, as always, we're running over time. In all interviews, I always run over time. So like, what other? I think we might have covered this. Are there any like tools that you learned during our time together that you still use today?
Yes, I can tell you the number one tool technique that I access on a regular basis is, and again, please jump in when you think of the name. It's the one where we would do it at the start of every session. And I would look up into the one corner of my bedroom and I would take in all the details. And I would slowly pan around right round the three sides, corners of my bedroom. A neurosensory resourcing.
It's called orienting.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the one that I use when I need to slow down, come back into my body. I use it if I'm in a sexual interaction and I feel like I might be getting like coming out of my body into my head.
Yeah.
Or I need to come out of the head and into the body. That is my go-to.
I love that. And it's also one of my personal go-tos as well. It's dissociation is a very familiar friend to me. So, you know, everything that I teach, it's like I've used myself because I'm very familiar with that. I'm very familiar with flying out of my body. And it's I know there's many different explanations for why that happens, but this is why I think these tools are powerful. And hang on, sorry, there's a couple of little midges in here, so I'm trying to get them out of my face. Kind of coming to the end, how would you describe the impact of our working together on not just your, say, sex and interaction with partners, your dating, but the rest of your life too?
So let me respond to that in two parts. So the first one is, so from someone who pre-working with you was, as we've touched on, stuck in my head, disconnected, couldn't say no, had no idea what I wanted, didn't ask for things, felt hopeless and lost, to arriving at a place of feeling things, Lucy, of actually feeling things in my body, like feeling pleasure, and in touching myself, right? That's a practice in itself. But feeling things and thinking, oh, I just discovered something, and asking for things and saying hell no to other things, right? The knock-on effect into the rest of my life has been, let me share an experience from earlier today to illustrate it. In going back over some of the notes from our time together, some of the themes that came up was me wanting to abort mission, right? You might remember this session or a couple of sessions where we touched on where I'll get into a situation and then I go, okay, I'm out of here. I'm out.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Let's cut this communication. Let's cut seeing you. Let's just cut and run.
Yeah.
And I did make gains from that. And yet, however, it's been shown to me again recently that little part is still floating around. And yet I realized something. It's finding that solid ground in myself.
Yeah.
It's focusing on what I can make certain.
Yeah. And
that was powerful. From our time together, I reflected that was a learning in the past. Parts of it were still present, and I was able to close it out this morning.
Yeah.
It was really powerful. I posted it on my social media. It was a breakthrough.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
And
the pattern.
And I kind of I'm putting on my coach's hat here, like this is kind of it's very normal, like the flight response when things get too much. And maybe that will just, I'm saying this because it's like the flight response, especially when things feel scary, which is somebody's getting close to me or my threat response is being triggered. Super normal. Super normal. Like in attachment style, they call it like an avoidant attachment. Maybe I'm hesitant to call it that, where your default when you feel something, run. And you are able to work with that. You're able to see it for what it is. And you've got the more tools now to be, okay, my default now, I want to run. Okay, let's stay with that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that that can sometimes, I say this also because that's often my default as well. And it's taken me it's taken me a while to work with that. And it's not bad. It's not, I don't know, I'm adding that in there. It's not bad. It's not wrong. Very normal.
It just is.
Yeah. So kind of finally, I don't know, what message or insight would you share with people who might be curious to work with me or start this work for themselves?
My parting message would be for someone who's maybe experiencing some of the feelings that I described of former Shae, and who has come across your work and what you do and can feel that inside of them, like that nudge, is to take it, because there is showing up for yourself. There's lushness and it's a gift to yourself that keeps on giving. That
Yeah.
example I shared about my experience this morning, the breakthrough,
Yeah.
I've accepted the messaging now, and that is to slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah.
I read a quote once, you can't be behind on a path that only you are on. It's your path,
I like
right?
I like that. I
It's
like that.
yours.
Yeah.
You are creating it,
Yeah.
and do it. Just do
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. I want to say it wasn't former Shae, it was a younger version of you who was already perfect and everything was already there. There was nothing
Thank you.
wrong with this Shae, this younger version of you. I mean, literally, like in terms of like timeline, but also like there's nothing wrong with that Shae who was already whole and wonderful. We just had to maybe, do a bit of pruning, and that's all. You didn't have to
Love
change.
that.
Yeah.
Love the gardening analogy. Thank you, Lucy.
Prune.
You're a
Away.
gift.
Oh, thank you, Shae. It's been really, really lovely to connect with you both into bloody hell, interview wise and otherwise as well. And there was something I was going to say and it's gone, which is very annoying. It may come back or not. But so can you tell people where they can find you online?
Absolutely. For anyone who is curious to find me and connect, say hi, that would be amazing.
Hmm.
My Instagram and TikTok handle is my name, Shae Court.
Shae
One
Court.
word.
Awesome.
Thank
Easy.
you.
Simple. Awesome. Well, this has
We
been so.
love that.
I know we love a bit of simplicity. Right. Well, oopsie. Let me just shuffle myself again. It's been so lovely to connect. And to any listeners, viewers, because this will be on my YouTube channel as well. I'd love to hear your takeaways. Oh God, I was going to say something else. It's gone now. But please do like and subscribe to this podcast. Follow it on YouTube. Leave a lovely review if that feels good for you. And we will connect again. Okay. Bye.
Amazing.
Bye.
Bye.